Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sasan Show, a podcast where I have interesting conversations with smart, intelligent people. My guest on today's podcast is Chris Astle-Smith. Chris is a long distance marathon swimmer. In the year 2017, Chris swam across the English Channel. The English Channel is a 32-kilometer body of water between England and France. What makes the swim extremely difficult is not only the distance, but also the freezing cold water, the jellyfish, and other sea creatures. The purpose of today's podcast is to give you an insight on the mental and physical preparation needed to undertake such a massive challenge. Welcome to the Sasan Show, Chris.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So, Chris, can you start by telling us a little bit about your athletic background? Did you like to swim or, were you into other sports?
Sure, yeah. So I have been a swimmer since a sort of a young age, probably started swimming, since I was very, very young, but started sort of competitively swimming from around sort of 10 years old.
Okay.
And then I was competitively swimming from 10 to around 17 years old.
Okay.
But it was never at any sort of professional level. It was always quite an amateur level with a local club. So yeah, I've always kind of been a strong swimmer. Yeah, that's my background there. And then, I've taken up
What
other
events
sports.
in swimming were you into?
So it was sprint swimming, sprint distance pool swimming.
And which stroke did you go?
My main stroke was front crawl, freestyle.
Oh, all right. All right. So swimming the English Channel is like this massive, massive commitment. What kind of inspired you to take such a journey? It's not like everybody wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to swim across the channel. Like, what happened that you decided to do something like this?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's something that I've always thought about doing from a young age, but never really sort of took the plunge in doing it. And then I've been into kind of fitness my whole life, and I was sort of big into just going to the gym, staying healthy and fit. But throughout my early 20s, and then kind of just reached a point where that really wasn't giving me any sort of bigger purpose, or yeah, I didn't feel like there was a sort of end goal with that as such. And I kind of had that something inside of me saying I want to train for something bigger. And yeah, it was after I'd done a couple of kind of hikes up a couple of mountains, and that really sort of, I kind of felt like this is something I like doing. I like having this kind of goal of just starting and then finishing, doing some sort of challenge bigger. And then I thought, I've always been a strong swimmer, and
Okay.
the kind of Everest of swims really is the English Channel. So I started then looking into it. I had a friend who was kind of telling me that I should do it
All right.
as well, or like pushing me towards saying like, yeah, I think you could do it. And I was like, yeah, I think I can as well. And then from there, the idea kind of just snowballed. And very quickly after I had sort of made that decision in my mind, that I then started sourcing, looking for a coach to work with, and somebody that could help me train for it. And then, yeah, book the challenge after that.
All right. So now you've decided that you're going to do this. What kind of training regime did you follow? Was it just swimming in the pool? Was it a mixture of open water swimming and swimming in the pool? Did you go to the gym? What were you doing?
Yeah, so
And what kind of weekly mileage were you hitting? Just out of curiosity.
sure. So yeah, all of this stuff I wouldn't have really known about without having an actual coach who had trained people to swim the channel before. So that the whole training program was sort of dictated by him, and his experience. So yeah, it starts off with just pool swimming.
Okay.
That's kind of where you start,
Okay.
and then after that I started training with him and his team, and started doing a lot more kind of sprint work as well, within the pool, because then you're building up the strength as well, to actually be a faster swimmer, not just getting in the pool and just swimming.
Can I just stop you for a minute, Chris? Because I'm very interesting because you're swimming 32 kilometers, but you're also doing sprint training. Wow.
Yes. So the
Wow.
sprint training is actually a crucial part of the training. You can't just, well, I mean, people do but like just swimming, you know, lengths and lengths in the pool for hours and hours and hours is good to do, and it is part of the training. You know, I did have to do long distance swims in the pool of 10 kilometers at a time and things like that. But the actual benefits really come from the sprint training, I think, because you are building up strength to swim faster. And when you swim the English Channel, it's not just a case of you know, slowly getting from one side to the other. There is an element of speed to it because of the tides.
Okay.
Yeah, so actually when you swim the channel, there is the tides are going, it's an ebb and flow tide, so the tides are moving up for 6 hours, then coming down for 6 hours. So if you've got England here and France here, you're
Yeah.
not swimming in a straight line, you're swimming in an S shape like that.
Yes.
So if you're too slow, then you're going to go up, you're going to go back down, and then you're going to go back up again, and then it'll be very hard to go back in, go up and into France. But if you're quick enough, you can go up one tide, down the other, and then up again and hit the headland in France. But if you are a slower swimmer, you might have to take those. It won't look like an S; it will look like a double S. If that makes
Got it.
sense.
Got it.
Um,
It does. It does.
and there's then a lot of more chance of things going wrong if you're kind of a slower swimmer. So a huge element to the training is the sprint training.
Got it. Got it. All right. Sorry, I'd cut you short. Yes, please tell us about your training.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, it would start off with pool work, and then throughout this, so it took me about 18 months to train for it.
Okay.
And in the sort of the first summer, I was going down to the coast a little bit, getting used to some open water swim training. I went on a swim training camp in Croatia with my coach, just to kind of get used to that open water.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I was doing a little bit of that year in 2016, not too much, a lot more kind of pool work. And then, uh, however, I did actually attempt Lake Windermere, which is a 18-kilometer lake in the UK, and to swim that in.
So roughly, you're getting half the distance, basically.
Yes, exactly. So that was a sort of a half the distance challenge, and that would be sort of a year out from the channel. So I wanted to do that to sort of mentally know that I could do half the distance one
Okay.
year out. And then yeah, I mean, as the kind of the months progressed, it wasn't until January 2017 that so the start of the year really that I started to really ramp up the kilometers, and then start doing sort of 20 to 30 kilometers a week worth of training. And then in the summer months that got to, 40, 50 kilometers.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, so quite a lot. So the training was it changed a lot as I progressed. It wasn't really this is the way that you're going to train from now for 18 months. It really kind of changed and progressed, and also changed with the weather conditions, because obviously in the winter I can't go down to the coast and train because it's really, really too cold.
I'm sure. So just two things then kind of pop up in my head. Number one, because this is what when I was doing some research for this, the first factor that kind of people were talking about is the extreme cold. So how did you prepare for that? Because the pool is whatever temperature the pool is, the channel is going to be a lot colder than that. So did your swim training, let's say in Croatia, or did the lake that you were talking about, was that also to kind of help you acclimatize to the cold?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did that also just to kind of get my body used to swimming in that temperature. And then yeah, there's other things that you can do as well, such as taking cold showers, that to just sort of get used to it, the water, but nothing really prepares you or acclimatizes you, just like getting down to the coast in the summer and just spending, doing a 3-hour swim in the sea, just to really kind of acclimatize your body. And then also you can't wear a wetsuit when you swim the English Channel. So it's just Speedos. And so lots of people put on extra weight and fat to insulate their body from the cold water. So I did put on about 10 kilos to swim the channel.
Wow. Okay. have to ask you this then. You're swimming 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers a week. That's crazy training volume. How on earth do you put on fat when you are working out so much? Because swimming is intense. How are you putting on
Yeah,
fat? What are you,
just a
is
lot
it,
of food. Yeah.
are you going straight to the bar every evening, or is there any other shortcut? What were you doing?
Yeah, just I mean, put it this way, you didn't really have to be too careful on what you're eating.
Okay.
It's I really had to kind of increase the calories
Okay.
and get a lot of fats in as well. So
Okay.
there's easy ways to do that with, like having, protein shakes, but adding peanut butter and coconut oil in there and avocados and, good healthy fats to really kind of just put on the weights because
Any
obviously
any
fats can
idea
be.
roughly how many calories were you burning and how many calories were you eating?
Oh, I can't remember too much, but I think I can't remember how much I was burning, but some days when I was putting on the calories, I think I was eating sort of 5 or 6,000.
Holy smoke. That's a lot of food for one
Yeah.
person to eat. Wow.
Good job
That's
I
a
had a
lot.
big appetite. So
Well, good. Wow. Chris, another thing, mental strength is a huge component of endurance sport. You cannot do any endurance sport if you're not mentally strong. How did you build that mental resilience? Did
yeah,
you kind of specifically train for it, or just as you kept training, did you just keep getting mentally stronger?
yeah, a little bit of that, I would say. But yeah, it's a lot of kind of mental training when you're doing these training swims. So when I would go down to the coast and swim for 3 hours or 4 hours in the sea, you kind of just you build up that strength slowly, mentally. And yeah, it's one of those things that's built up quite slowly, I think. Yeah. Nothing else I was doing. I wasn't really doing any kind of meditation and things, but a lot of that kind of meditation helped, was actually coming in when I was swimming. I was swimming in getting into kind of a very good meditative state while swimming.
How does one qualify to swim across the channel? Is there any association or any body that says, you know what, Chris, you can swim across the channel and somebody else can't?
Yeah, there is. There's a Channel Swimming Association,
Okay.
and they only allow you to attempt the channel if you have qualified, and the qualifying to do that, you have to do a qualifying swim,
Okay.
which is I believe it's a 6 hour swim in less than 15 degrees Celsius water.
Okay. So once you do that, they say now Chris is eligible to do the swim.
Correct, yes.
All right. All right. Interesting. And are there any rules when you're swimming across the channel, or
Yeah,
is yeah?
yeah, the rules are
Because
quite simple.
earlier you were saying that you can't wear a wetsuit. Is there
So
any other rule?
yeah, so the rules are quite simple. Of course, there is that one that you can't wear the wetsuit. The obvious, thing is that you need to start in France, in England, and finish in France on
Okay.
land.
Okay.
So when you actually start, the boat takes you to the sort of the beach or the bay where you'll set off, and then you have to swim from the boat, and then you have to clear the water in England, stand up, and then of course clear the water fully in France. So that's like the basics of it, and then you can't touch the boat once. So you can't grab hold of the boat or touch the boat. You can only wear one swimming hat. That's to prevent people wearing two, which keeps their head more warm.
Warm. Okay.
Uh, Pair of goggles. Yeah, you can wear Vaseline, Speedos, and that's pretty much it, to be honest.
All right. All right. Now let us talk about the swim itself. What was the atmosphere like? Now you're in England, you're ready to take off. What was the atmosphere like? How was the tide like? Was the water cold? Was it a warm day? What was like the day of the swim?
Sure. So this is the whole. I'll explain the kind of the sort of whole story, the whole
Yeah.
journey of this. So I'd been training for sort of, well, for 18 months for it, but also been kind of tapering down my distance training for the
Correct.
last kind of 10 days,
Yeah.
ramping up, doing a lot of carb loading, to kind of just get my body into the prime position. And when you swim the channel or book your slot, you have a sort of 2 week window. And within that window, there are 4 people that can go in each slot. So for each boat. So I was actually slot number 2. So that means I have to wait for the first person to have completed their swim before they can book me on the next one. And of course, this 2 week window is because of weather conditions and things like that, they have to find the right conditions for somebody to swim. So on the I think it was around the 13th or the 14th of August, 2017, my coach called me up and he said, look, Chris, you're probably going to be swimming tonight. We'll be setting off around 1 a.m. from
Okay.
Dover.
Okay.
So, get ready, just rest up.
1 a.m. So right in the middle of the night when it's pitch black.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So
Wow.
the reason for that is because that's when it's all to do with the tides. So that's when the tide is at the right position to set off.
Okay.
Um, and that changes based on the time of the year. But for me, in August and on the 14th, that was the right time to set off, and that's all based on the pilot of the boat, his recommendations, his experience.
Okay.
So yeah, sort of said, okay, you're going to be setting off at this time. I prepared myself mentally. I told all my friends and family. The charity that I was doing it for were also aware. I was, I had a load of people following the whole journey on Facebook, so I was informing everybody about that as well, letting everyone know that the swim's taking place tonight. The weather conditions were, the forecast was great. So everything was all set up. Really felt like this is it. I'm very much ready for this.
Okay.
Uh, I'd had a lot of shoulder pain throughout the training, and my shoulder was finally starting to feel better.
Okay.
Everything was all good. And so get on the boat at around 1 o'clock in the morning. And I think we had planned to like sort of leave around 1:30, 2 a.m. From from the bay in England. And so we got on the boat, and then as we're getting into the bay, we at this point I am fully speedoed up. I've got Vaseline all over me. My
Yep.
goggles on, the
Yep.
hat was on. My friends are on Facebook Live, following, streaming in.
Go, Chris.
Yeah, everyone's there ready for it. And I'm mentally getting in the zone. Felt very ready. And then just before I was about to jump in, we heard this noise on the boat. We didn't really know what it was. My coach didn't know. The pilot didn't really know. But my coach said, like, don't jump in just yet. We're just trying to figure out, what's just happened to the boat. And then just before I was about to jump in, my coach said to me, look, we may have just hit some rocks or something. So just be careful when you're kind of jumping in that you don't, jump onto any rocks. Just be careful. So I said, okay. And then the few minutes later, the pilot came out and he had opened up the engine bay of the boat, and the prop shaft had actually sheared off the engine.
Oh.
So this is unheard of in sort of channel swimming history. This my pilot had never seen anything like this. It was a complete sort of freak accident, and they didn't hit any rocks or anything, but the prop shaft had literally just sheared off the engine, and no one really sort of knew why or how that could have happened.
What happened after that then?
So the coach just sorry, the pilot said no swim happening today,
Okay.
and I was just in complete disbelief. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, 18 months I'd been training for this moment, and the last 10 days I'd really perfected everything, ready to go. My shoulder was feeling good. Everyone's streaming in on Facebook. My friends and family are on the beach as well, like waiting to see me off. And I'm just told like there's no swim happening. So obviously I'm sat there in just shock for a few hours, and we were sat on the boat waiting for a sort of rescue boat to come and pull us back into the harbour. And this is actually something that I think about a lot, and when I do, it kind of makes the hairs on my back go up, which was really strange. Was that although the weather forecast was supposed to be really good, my coach said to me, there's a silver lining in all of this, and he showed me his app which had a forecast, and it
Okay.
said we're due to get an unexpected storm come across the channel right now.
Wow.
um
Wow.
and we're sat on the boat, we're waiting to get picked up until 6 a.m. So we were on the boat for about 4 hours, and during this time a massive storm came across the channel. We saw the lightning, there was thunder coming across the channel, and it was really a sort of silver lining that someone or something somewhere, the universe was looking out for me, to just say, today wasn't your day, and this happened for a reason, because if I had attempted it and then got pulled out because of weather conditions, I would probably have to wait until next year if I wanted to attempt it again, because of how far in advance you need to book your slot.
Oh, okay, okay. Because there are others waiting in queue.
Yeah, but also, yeah, there's other people who had booked slots, so
Okay,
that was my only time to go.
got it.
But of course, I didn't get in the water, so I didn't actually start my swim. So um, that was the sort of silver lining in that. But I was in complete shock, driving back from Dover. I just couldn't really believe it. Everything just felt like a dream. And then called my coach up the next day and said, look, what's happening? Like, when can I expect to swim? And he said, look, I'll be honest with you, we've never really encountered this before. This is something that we've never dealt with. We don't know if you'll be swimming, in the next few days, or in if not, then because you've got this 2 week window, right? So if the boat's not fixed within that window, then somebody else has got their slot to go on.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
can't push everyone's, because that's not fair. So I have that two week slot, and so they're saying if the slot doesn't, if the boat's not fixed in that slot time, then they might be able to squeeze you in, at the end of the season, which is end of September, maybe October. If not that, then it's going to have to be next year. And of course, I didn't want to do it next year. This training is brutal. I don't want to train for this for another year.
I can
So
imagine. I can
yeah,
imagine.
so I
Yeah.
just really was just praying that, the boat got fixed. And every day I'm calling up my coach, what should I do? Should I keep training? Should I what food should I have?
So you
Should I
continued to carb load.
No, at
Okay.
that point he just sort of said, don't just eat normal.
Okay.
And he just said, get in the pool, swim a kilometer or a
Hmm.
couple of kilometers. Don't do anything too strenuous, because we don't know if you'll be going or not. And so that's what I was doing. But mentally I was completely out now. Like, my mental state was completely gone. I didn't have that sense of, uh, like that feeling of being ready anymore. My shoulder pain had started to come back,
Oh God.
after like I was starting to train a little bit in the pool. And then my coach called me up at the net. It was about 10 days later after, and he said, look, the boat's fixed now. We can get you on tomorrow for a slot. He said, there's one thing I need to make you aware of, though, is that you'll be swimming in a spring tide, which is so in that sort of 2 week window. The first week is a neap tide, which is a weaker tide, and then the second week is a spring tide, which is a stronger tide. And so, if you remember, I was talking about that S shape.
Yes. Yes.
Neap tide people, the S is sort of a softer S, and then the spring tide, it would be a really strong sort of S
Okay.
shape. That's what it
Good.
means by the tides being a real high tide and
Hmm.
strong tide. So he said, look, because you're quick enough, I think you've got the speed to swim on this spring tide. If you were a slower swimmer, I would say don't do it. But because we're happy with your pace and your speed, I think you can swim it on a spring tide. And so he said, look, it's now or kind of
Next year.
next year, really, if you want to take the chance on it. And I said, yeah, okay, well, I'm doing it because there's no other option really for me. I'm not waiting till next year. I'm getting this done this year. And so yeah, called up my friends and family and everyone and sort of told them that it was a go for today. And this was on the 24th of August. Same sort of time, set off 2 a.m. And then this time not many people could come down and see it off. Other people had plans at this point because it was so unexpected. So went down with a couple of my friends on the boat that were coming on the boat, and yeah, set off. But again, I was just so mentally not there. I'd been so thrown off. It was almost like I had PTSD from that experience.
Okay.
Um,
I can
and
imagine.
yeah, and so sort of thrown off by it. I wasn't in the right mental state to do it. Um, as I was saying, my shoulder was flaring up a little bit. I wasn't confident on the boat, whereas the time before I was really confident, speaking to everyone on Facebook Live, like letting them know that, you know, it's all going on. This time I was just in my own head, just speaking softly to my coach and saying, you know, what if my shoulder's flaring up? You know, what are we gonna do? And yeah, so he just sort of said like, you know, we'll make it. We will do it. You know, you're quick enough. You're going to do it. He said if your shoulder flares up, then I'm just going to feed you painkillers. Um, so so yeah, and it was around that sort of same set off time. I think it was about 1:50 a.m.
Okay.
When I set off,
Okay.
and yeah, cleared the water in England, and then got on in the water, started swimming in the dark for about 4 hours. It was dark for roughly 4 hours, and this was the hardest part of the swim for me, because it was dark. The waters were a bit choppy, so I couldn't get into a good rhythm. Also, because I couldn't really see the boat and things, it was hard for me to kind of get into a good relaxed rhythm of swimming. Um, and I got stung in the face by a jellyfish at this point.
How was that? How does it hurt? What happens when you get stung by a jellyfish?
Well, I just sort of said to my coach, I've just been stung by a jellyfish, and he just said, "All right, get on with it." I
But
said,
wait,
"There's
have you
no."
been stung in practice also, or
I
was
had
this your
I had
first time?
no, I
Okay.
had a few stings in practice. But this one was really painful actually. It lasted like sort of 4 or 5 hours, and it got me right in the face. But yeah, and as I said, there's nothing I can really do about it.
Except maybe pop a painkiller.
Yeah, but even then, I didn't actually pop a painkiller for it. You know, it's not that type of pain. It's almost like a bit stronger than a bee sting, kind
Oh,
of.
okay. Got it.
Um,
Got it.
so you can take the pain.
Okay.
It's not like one of those jelly. It wasn't like a box jellyfish or anything like Portuguese man o' war. It was just a painful sort of venomous jellyfish in the English Channel. Don't know what species, but yeah, got hit with that, and then yeah, and those 4 hours were really the kind of the toughest part I thought of the swim. Those
So
first
once
four.
the sun comes out, does it get a little warmer?
So yeah, that's what I was kind of waiting for really, was that sunrise. And then as I'm, you know, getting into that sunrise time, sort of 6 or 7 a.m., the water just started to go, the sort of choppiness um stopped, and everything became really flat, and the water was like a mill pond. It was really, really beautiful. The sunrise was one of the best sunrises I've ever seen. And at that point, like I just knew, like, I'm getting this done. There's nothing stopping me now. You know, my shoulder is fine. That was my biggest worry. And you know, my shoulder was okay. So I knew, like, if my shoulder's fine after 4 hours, I can keep going. And that's when I sort of decided that, you know, I'm going to do this, and there's nothing going to stop me. And that's when all that kind of motivation came back. And then yeah, then I was swimming for the next um I don't know how many hours. It was probably about
You
seven
you
seven
took you
hours,
took
seven
about
or eight.
11 hours 45 minutes. I was check. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, about seven to 8 more hours of that kind of swimming. But because the day was so nice, you know, the sun was out, it was clear blue skies. I had the sun on my back. So even though the water was the same temperature, it felt warmer mentally. And I was obviously, of course, when you got the sun on your back, things feel a bit warmer. Yeah, and so then swimming, and then at around, I think it was around sort of 1:30 French time, then I made it onto Cap Grenet, which is the sort of headland. I'd you know, perfectly swam that S shape, and landed on that headland, and then I found a rock to clear, climbed on the rock, and then yeah, sort of celebrated on the rock for about 45 seconds. There's not much else I can do at that point. There's nobody that's
There's
there.
no reception party for you.
No, none of
Not a
that.
soul.
No, well, no, because you're on cliffs. There are beaches that you can land on, but it really depends where you land. But I landed on a cliffside, so it just sort of meant that nobody was there, and I just climbed onto a rock and cheered a little bit, and it was a bit of a surreal
And how
experience.
long was it till the pilot from the boat and all of them caught up with you?
So actually the boat, you stay alongside the boat all the time,
Yep.
but a few hundred meters the boat can't come too close. So
Oh,
it anchors a few hundred meters out, and then
okay,
they put a rubber dinghy off the boat,
okay.
and then the ratifier, which is the person that sort of ratifies the swim,
Yeah.
goes out on the dinghy just to make sure that you clear the water right, and there's no issues. So yeah, they get on a dinghy, and then yeah, and then I climbed, cleared the water, got back on the dinghy and back on the boat, and that was that.
Uh,
Done it.
what was your thing when you just reached France? What was the first thought in your head? I mean, that's a feeling money can't buy.
Yeah,
This is
I know.
something you
It's
have to
weird.
experience. I mean, there is no way of describing it, I'm sure. But how would you, if you had to describe that moment, how did you just feel?
I suppose the description would just be like sort of dreamlike,
Yeah.
like not real. That's how I would explain it. I didn't have this
Was it
feeling.
this immense sense of pride? Were you like extremely proud of what you've achieved? Because this is massive.
Yeah, there was that, but I think the feeling, the surrealness, or like the feeling of it being a dream overpowered that. More than that sense of like real achievement. It's
Okay.
just it was just I had more of this sense of this isn't real. Like, how can this be real? I can't believe or this has happened.
If I could just take you back to the swim, because a couple of questions that I've been wanting to ask you about that, the swim itself. Now, you took you 11 hours 45 minutes to swim. How did you hydrate on this journey? Were you eating something? I'm sure you had to, because you
Yeah.
definitely need some form of carbohydrates when you're doing something this long. So,
Yeah, sure. So the nutrition kind of program is every 30
because
minutes.
you said you can't touch the boat, so I'm very curious to know, how were you eating?
Yeah, so every 30 minutes, my coach would blow a whistle and they'd throw on a piece of string to me, almost like a bottle, so like a protein shake bottle.
Okay.
And in that would be mixed carbohydrate, sugars mixed with warm water. And then they'd throw that out. I'd drink that, maybe 10, 20 seconds of treading water, drinking that, and then I'd go again, like back for another 30 minutes. And that cycle would repeat every 30 minutes, and each feed was usually something different. So it would be, perhaps it was a glucose carbohydrate mix, and then the next time it would be a fructose carbohydrate mix, and then a sucrose carbohydrate mix, so that your body doesn't get used to just one sugar type. So yeah, that was the reason why you sort of mix up the different types of carbs. And then sometimes they'd put some sort of protein stuff in there as well. Yeah, so I can't remember what it was I had for the protein source, but yeah, that's kind of.
This is incredible. I mean, on a boat, there's a string on to which a source of carbohydrates is tied. That's thrown. You take that, then you drink it, and then oh wow, incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
I've never thought of this, but this is just mind-boggling.
yeah,
The
that's how it's done.
other question I have, because I do a little bit of running. I mean, nothing extreme. So when I'm running, I tell myself I'm going to run till the next lamppost or the next tree. When I
Hmm.
reach that, I tell myself I'll run till the next lamppost or the next tree. Now, in the sea, you don't have any lampposts, nor do you have any trees. So, what kind of self-talk did you have? I'm sure there was a
Yeah,
lot of positive self-talk, and that you were engaging in.
sure. Yeah. So what I did mentally was, as I was saying, there was these 30-minute blocks between the feeds.
Yeah.
And I mentally would, spend 30 minutes thinking about a particular friend or family member that, been a part of my life, and those experiences that I've had with that person, and what sort of things that we've done. And then the next 30 minutes, it would be somebody different, another friend, and then the next one would be another friend or experiences. So it kept my mind busy each 30 minutes with something different.
Wow. That's really nice. I'm going to try to use this on one of my runs now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going.
it does help. It was especially when, I mean, the runs, you've got things to see, and you can get a bit distracted
Yeah.
by what's going on, but in the sea, it's the same thing in front of you at all times. So you really, really have to think of something, mentally.
So, Chris, a lot of Olympic athletes have this void after the Olympic Games are over, because such a large part of their life, a lot of their identity comes from this. Once you swam and reached the other side, was there a little bit of a void in your life? Because, you spent so much time thinking about it. You spent so much time training for it. I'm sure for those 18 months, this meant a lot to you. So was there any kind of, if I could
Yeah.
use the word mental health challenge that you faced once you once you
Yeah,
reached
absolutely.
France?
There was, and I didn't think it was going to happen. A lot of people had said that to me,
Okay.
and I sort of said they'd always said, "Oh, you have to have something next." What's next after that? Because you can't just not have anything because you'll mentally you won't be able to kind of cope. But I always sort of just said, no, no, this is all the only challenge I'm doing. I'm not putting any more sort of challenges after that. This is the one challenge that I want to achieve. And I didn't think any of that kind of mental health, the mental health issues would sort of happen. And then as soon as I finished the swim, I was still on a high for a few months, really. And that those months after was really about kind of losing the weight of the channel swim that I had put on. So that was kind of my next goal, was that. And then kind of after that weight dropped off, I think was when really that sort of mental challenge came in, and then I started to get a bit depressed, and just felt very, very much like the sense of unfulfillment in my life in general. And so I felt extremely lost at this point. I think that lasted about 18 months after the swim finished, until I started to feel much better and get out of that sort of depressive time of my life. So yeah, for the amount of time it took me to swim the channel, 18 months of training, I had 18 months of what I would say is sort
A
of
mental deload.
yeah, exactly, afterwards. So yeah, I did experience that. It was very strange.
My last question to you, Chris, what would your advice be to people who are listening to this, who have now been inspired by this, and they say, you know what, we may not want to swim across the English Channel, but hey, I want to do an Ironman triathlon, someone wants to run an ultra, somebody else wants to compete in powerlifting, start their own business. What is your advice to people? Because I also know that you're like a serial entrepreneur. So what would be your advice to these people
So the first
who
sort of
have
thing.
set themselves like this massive, big, scary goal that they want to achieve?
So two things really. The first one is just take the mental leap and say, I'm gonna do this. And then the second one after that, I would say is work out how you're gonna do it. And the reason the way that how you're gonna do it is by setting small goals, right? So throughout, it wasn't of course there's one big goal that was there for me over the 18 months, which was to swim the channel. Along that way, there was a mountain of sort of small goals that I was looking to compete in. There was other small challenges, different swimming events across the summer, like the lake that I told you about. There were some other ones in the sea that I was sort of competing. And then also just each week I had a set amount of kilometers to swim. My coach gave me swimming blocks and training plans. So really it was about sort of taking it day by day. And then so that in the very smallest goal is completing your swim training block for the day, and then the mid-sized goals would be to train to swim in those smaller events, so like the Lake Windermere, and then of course at the end is the final challenge. But along that way, there's lots of small goals. So setting yourself those small goals, chipping away at them every day, that's how you'll eventually get from from that decision in your mind, that first step of saying I'm going to do it, to actually doing it.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time out, Chris, in doing this. That was very, very nice. And I hope you had fun.
Yeah, I loved it. It's always nice to sort of bring back those memories, and it's nice to recite those experiences and that journey, because otherwise sometimes you forget them, forget what happened. So it's great to bring it back.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Have a lovely day. And for those of you who are listening, stay tuned for more episodes of the Sasan Show.
Thanks, Brigu. Nice to meet you. Take
Same
care
here.
and enjoy the day. Bye.
Yes. Bye. Bye.